you believe that we started recording right in the middle of 2020 with all of the COVID and lockdowns going on around us, unable to meet up? So like many a young gentleman, we turned to the internet for our entertainment. Trying to find a place where we could meet up and talk about the good, the bad, and that time that Stu saw a pelican on the canal. In order to facilitate our dreams of answering all of the big questions in film, and after a few attempts at recording via other methods to various levels of success, we found Zencastr, a super easy web-based one-stop shop for recording. Log in and you're ready to record in a matter of seconds. It doesn't take a tech genius to get high quality audio or video. And on top of that, the one time we have had an issue, the fact that the multi-layered backups are stored locally means it's easily fixed all in browser. There are plenty of tools you need when you start podcasting, so let Zencastr take that headache away, as it offers a place to record, edit and distribute all from one website. Any lazy bones Jones can pick up and play and have studio quality audio or 4K video put out for the world to see when using Zencastr. Go to zencastr.com/pricing and use our code CAGEFIGHTING and you'll get 30% off your first month of any Zencastr paid plan. We want you to have the same easy experiences we do for all our podcasting and content needs. It's time to share your story. And now, hit the music.
Nicolas Cage is probably one of our generation's definitive actors.
Stu, you know how you always had the piss saying I'm a hipster? I have to confess something. I've ordered a fountain pen.
That's very Andre. It's very Andre.
That is, isn't it? It's terrible.
Is it a Parker?
It's not a Parker. It's a Lamy something or other.
Of course it fucking is. You can't even get a normal fountain pen. It has to be ridiculous.
I think this Lamy is like one of the original ones as well, to be fair. But yeah, I saw someone writing with it. I was like, oh, that's...
Has it got
that does.
Has it got a feather on the end?
There's no feather on the end there. I'll send you the link.
I was never allowed a fountain pen at school because I never cut the mustard when it come to handwriting.
Pencil. We were on pencil for a while.
I was on pencil for a while, but I did get off that lined paper eventually. But yeah, it's one of those. I always felt cheated.
They give them a certificate now at school for if you when you graduate to pen, you get a certificate in primary school.
Yeah, stuff and everything, don't they, these days?
But this is probably another one of these things where your youthful generation suffered from our dalliances of the old flick, which used to happen every day. So you get it and then you flick it with your hand, and ink could go up all everyone's back every day. They fail.
Shirts ruined.
Yeah, constantly. But yeah, I did think when I bought it, like, I can't even fucking deny it anymore.
The only time you should ever get a fountain pen is if you took out a policy that Parkinson has like tried to sell you on you might get a free clock radio for. So I decided to like every title to have a fountain pen.
Or if you're joining up to a saga cruise or something.
Sun Life.
I wonder what the prizes are you get for those these days. I bet it's like stuff ridiculous, like a third generation iPhone or something like that now. Or something obscenely like what we don't think is valuable anymore, but like old people do.
Game Boy Color.
Yeah.
The Game Boy Color, yeah.
Right, let's get it started. Hello and welcome to Cage Fighting. It's your main man Andy Gillard here. Hope everyone is keeping well right now.
Hey up, Matt Guy here. Hope everybody is fantastic whenever you are listening to this podcast.
Hola, since we're going all northern today. Good morning, good afternoon. Hello, everyone.
Is that northern? on the French coast?
I've had too many Mexican vibes in me today, and not enough food. So it is whatever it wants to be. Hello, everyone. Yes, I'm not last either. I'm not last. It's a bit Cilla Black. I was almost going to say Jimmy Savile, but I stopped myself. It's more Cilla Black.
And you still said it.
I said it, but I altered it. We're giving someone their dream today. Here you are, Ed.
Yes, well, we've got with us Ed Marshall, who, Ed, you emailed us not long ago, and then it reminded me that we really need to get you on this podcast. So we'll do the our 3 questions for any newbies in a minute, but just remind us about the email that you sent, because I didn't read it, because I thought I'll let you come with it.
So, obviously I've listened to you guys since you started during the Fancast recently, but listened to Cage Fighting since lockdown when you guys all started it, and on the Christmas Eve game, Wolves versus Chelsea, I bumped into one Matt, genuinely a minor celebrity starstruck. So I bumped into a bloke from the Fancast and a bloke from Cage Fighting, 2 of my Spotify's trended thing at the year. It was like top 2 and 3. I think only the Football Ramble was before those 2 podcasts. And I think to add to the starstruck moment is that my little boy Jacob was with me, and he thought Matt was a real celebrity because he's listened to the Fancast through, to some of it, not all of it, depending on who's on and how sweary it gets. But yeah, so he's listened through osmosis for most of his life in the car, driving places, and he genuinely thought Matt was, Matt, you are, a celebrity in my eyes. I think you were like Will Smith levels of celebrity.
I think he wondered why Greg Wallace had a beard, and that was why. that was where it's come from.
Oh, he definitely went shy as well, Matt. So that's how you know I'm telling the truth.
That's the only reason I can put down to it.
Outstanding. Right, so anyone first time on the podcast, we've got 3 questions. Same 3 questions every time. First one, Ed, sweet or salted popcorn?
Well, nothing from the cinema because the prices are scandalous. But if I'm taking my own, salted.
Correct.
Lovely. Just to segue for a second, I went to the Good Food Show before Christmas, and they had Joe and Seth's cheese on toast.
Oh,
and it was incredible. So it was like a really strong cheddar with a caramel to it. Fucking game changer stuff. Get on it. Awesome.
I absolutely love cheese on toast with Worcester sauce on it.
Can we just confirm that for the start bit's going to go at the start, isn't it? Before the titles go. Like, this is the new way of doing things. Because if not, and that's at the end, Andy's already he's talked about a Parker pen, and now
no, it wasn't a Parker.
No, it wasn't a Parker. He's talking about a fencing pen, but now he's been to the Good Food Show as well in the space of 7 minutes.
Good Food Show class.
He wonders why he was named Andre Gillard, not by us, by Dan.
Yeah. But speaking of popcorn, so our good buddy Ash Dolan's recently got back from Philadelphia, and he's bought me some popcorn back. He's bought me some dill-flavoured popcorn, which I haven't opened yet because, my other half won't be happy if I've eaten dill pickle-flavoured popcorn without her. And also something called Philly Pop, which is a really, it's quite spicy, and a caramel popcorn mixed together. We're ripped off in this country because we get fuck all, but in America they've got some amazing combos. It's incredible.
Have you ever had the Irish cheese popcorn that they have over there? And it's like the equivalent of having like a bag of Space Raiders to them. It's not like a luxury pop thing at all. It's just like it's just a bag of crisps. It's the most unbelievable popcorn you're ever going to eat. I was like really hungover on the way back from a wedding, and at the services I just picked up like 2 big bags, and I was shoveling them in my mouth like it was the last food I was ever going to eat. This cheese popcorn all in my beard and everything. I was like a pig in shit. I was really happy. It's really good.
Incredible. Fantastic. Ed, what is your favourite Nicolas Cage film?
So I've agonised over this for the last couple of days, and I think I'm going to go with Kick-Ass, even though he's sort of a side character. But the reason for it is I went to see that film with a mate who'd just come back from travelling way back when, and we just picked it because it was on at the cinema when we were just rocked up. We had no idea what it was. We did a full stew. There was no trailers, no spoilers beforehand. And I think it's the third word, the C word, from a 12-year-old girl. And you're like, what the hell have we walked into? And then from then on, it's just this bloodbath and hilarity. And Kick-Ass, definitely.
Great choice. The final question then is, if you were made to watch only one film for the rest of your life, what would that one film be?
So it's the best film that's ever been made, which is the original Back to the Future. You name what you want from a film, it's in that film. It's the best film that's ever been made.
I don't think I've said that before.
I mean, our other regular contributor, Dave Evans, is a massive fan of that as well, isn't he? So I can't argue because it is a perfect popcorn film.
Mhm.
Like, yeah, it's good choice. Very good choice.
If it's on TV, you can pick it up at any point, watch it, enjoy it. You're not going to get bombarded. You don't need to get stuck into whether time travel works and how it all works. We don't need to worry about that. But you're getting two great performances from basically it's just two characters with everyone else is in the sidelines, isn't it? It's just it's the perfect film for me.
Excellent. Where do you stand on the sequels? Because I know that they're not quite as highly regarded.
No, I think 2 is very clever, but it overthinks itself, I think, for me. And 3 we've gone almost slapstick, haven't we, with the Wild West and, getting shot. And he's got the metal plate underneath him and all of that kind of stuff. They're fine. Again, they're fine movies. If they weren't attached to that first film, they probably wouldn't have seen a light of day. But that first film, I think, has enough kudos to carry it through for me that they're acceptable movies, but you're not gonna rush out to watch 2 and 3 again.
Which one came first? The chest plate, was it Marty McFly that got shot, or the Doc that got shot, or Bret Hart being speared by Goldberg and the chest plate? Which was the first one? I thought I need to know now which one copied which.
I think Goldberg one would have been, was it 2000, maybe 99 when that one happened?
All of the films were before that, so.
Yeah. Moving on to the news then. It's funny you mentioned wrestling there, Matthew. I'm going to come to you last when I spoke about this, because I feel you've probably got the most to say on this matter.
Oh,
so
yes, I have.
It is very tangentially related to film, I guess, but it's everybody's favourite former actor, I suppose, at the moment, because Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson is returning to the wrestling ring after 11 years away to headline WrestleMania, which is happening early April, late March, I think, whenever it is. Let's be perfectly honest, Dwayne has had a bit of a shit time over the last couple of years. Young Rock cancelled, XFL lost millions and millions last year. Black Adam shat the bed. And even when he tried to do some good and asked people to donate to the Merry Fund for the charity of the people in Hawaii, he got just absolutely shat all over by people who generally follow him. He's not having a good time at the moment. So he's returned to his roots. It's the job he took when football didn't pan out for him. He's returned to the wrestling ring. Stu, your wrestling experience is probably mostly back to when The Rock was a big deal, isn't it? So I don't think you're much of a modern guy anymore.
I mean, after the Netflix thing, which I don't know if we probably have mentioned it, that will absolutely get me right back in again, because it'll be so easy to watch. It's easy enough to watch anyway now through means, but just having it there and on different platforms and different machines, and it's easy to pick up from where you left off and stuff like that, that will get me right back in next year. But things like this, like WrestleMania, I'll watch that anyway. But does this mean he's coming back for WrestleMania and that only, or is he going to be doing house shows as well?
He will more than likely do WrestleMania and the odd TV appearance where he'll come and say a few catchphrases, because with all due respect, I think if he wrestles more often than that, he probably won't make WrestleMania. His last appearance 11 years ago, he tore his quad, I think it was, within the first few minutes of the match. I don't think he's got the cardio to go through these matches anymore. So it's very much a part-timer doing a part-timer thing and being in the main event. Ed, do you have any experience at all with wrestling?
So my age is perfect for the Attitude Era. So, I watched it at school. Stone Cold, The Rock, the People's Elbow. Then he was the corporate elbow and all that stuff. So I remember all of that. But no, I stopped watching, I think, as that was coming towards its end. So, I know DX and all those people from back in the day, but I've not watched one fake punch being thrown in, 20 years or more now.
It's been a while then.
Right, so when I put the link in about the game the other day, who is that blonde guy? Because I've seen him everywhere, like within the last week, but I've never seen him before ever.
Which one was this, Stu? Sorry.
So that's Cody Rhodes, who you're talking about.
Oh, the wrestling game, yeah.
Son of the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes.
he's very much linked to this story, in fairness, because everyone thought he was going to be the one who was going to be main event in WrestleMania, which sort of leads me on to the point I was coming to you for, Matt. So last week we had the news where WWE was moving to Netflix, big, massive deal, and then a lawsuit dropped on WWE that Vince McMahon is a sex trafficking rapist, I think is pretty much what he's been accused of been doing there, to put it bluntly. So they've had to move quite a lot of things around, including because of injuries. So they've brought Dwayne into main event to give them a bit of positive PR. If you look on Twitter, which I know is very much a bubble, the story of Vince McMahon lasted for 24 hours. The story of Dwayne is now rumbling into its third day. It kind of feels a little bit gross, if I'm being perfectly honest, but I understand that it's all about PR and that's what they're doing it for. Matt, like, where do you... Because, I mean, you're the one, I think you probably watched more WWE in the last 5 years than us three combined, so...
For the real context of it, Cody Rhodes won the Royal Rumble last year. Not just one that's just come back. Last year, didn't beat Roman Reigns. Roman Reigns has continued his title reign up until now, had it well over 1,300 days. And the whole thing was, I need to finish the story from Cody Rhodes. That was the whole gimmick. Cut forward to now, Cody Rhodes wins the Royal Rumble again. CM Punk got injured. He was meant to be Cody Rhodes. CM Punk was meant to be in the mix with all this. Brock Lesnar, he's been linked but not charged with the whole Vince McMahon thing. So he's now gone, struck from the record books. And The Rock is a board member of TKO, which is the UFC WWE conglomerate. And the thing is, what people are so pissed off at is that The Rock is seen to have used like a political influence, and he is in the main event to boost TKO's image in the WWE and vice versa. So it's a political manoeuvring instead of a storyline. And that's why people are so up in arms about it. Because it's this hot, like, there's a whole hashtag thing going on of we want Cody and everything else. I just think from like The Rock's point of view, he's just, he's seen like over the course of like his wrestling career as of late, he always seems to be like the wrong place at the wrong time. Like he's never like in a position where people actually want him to be there anymore. Like when Roman Reigns was like, everyone hated him the most. The Rock was the guy that came out to save him and everyone booed him out the building. And now everyone's booing The Rock out the building now. And like Steve Austin didn't need The Rock, but Rock needed Steve Austin. And he's just always been in the wrong place at the wrong time. And then when he got into the film world, he was just, there was nothing that he touched that didn't turn to liquid gold. And now it's just kind of all the cards are falling around him at this point in time. And it's really strange to see because he was like the highest paid actor recently, hasn't he? Like for like the last few years in a row, and his stock is plummeting fast. And then that one bastion, that safe space, the wrestling world is then, they've always turned against him as well. So, you know, a very niche wrestling reference here, but it's very much got the Brock Lesnar, Steve Austin, WrestleMania 20 vibes about this match, where basically for the non-wrestling fan, they'll just get booed out the building when the match starts. It'll just be an absolute dumpster fire. And I'm all here for it. Like, really, I'm to watch it. That's part of the misery of being a wrestling fan, is enjoying it when it's shit as well. But yeah, he's not done himself a lot of favours here, old Dwayne.
Well, now, I can't see this being the thing that's going to turn his fortunes around. I mean, it'll increase his bank balance, but I don't think the fans will come flocking for this one, if I'm perfectly honest. Speaking of shit that Dwayne's falling star has glommed onto, Fast X Part 2 is reportedly going back to basics. We are so far away from when this series was about street racing. It would make more sense if Part 2 was them going and colonising Mars. So I don't understand what going back to basics is going to achieve here. Like, if they go back to street racing, I don't want to see that. Ed, we've never spoke about Fast before. Are you a fan?
So I watched the first one and the second one. And the third one, I looked at the trailer and realised that we were moving into an action film that wasn't sort of... You know, the first one was all about bootleg CDs, wasn't it, or DVDs? So if they're going back to basics, there's no physical media anymore. What, bootleg Netflix. I don't know what they're gonna plan to do. So I haven't watched it for a long time, but yeah. Does it need a reboot? Can't we just say goodbye to it? I've obviously heard all of the the reviews you guys have done when you've talked about the different Fast films, and it always seems like it's getting more and more absurd to the point we can't go anywhere else with it now. And obviously, there was that reboot, Hobbs and Shaw. I watched that. That was that was an enjoyable film. That was more my kind of thing, and less Vin Diesel talking about family in his vest. So those films have never really been for me. But whether going back to basics, sometimes you need to stop flogging the dead horse, right?
I mean, 6 onwards are the same film as Hobbs and Shaw. I mean, maybe we're rolling bootleg Blu-rays down the dam. Maybe that's what this means. Spoilers for the end of Fast X. You've had a year. Grow up. I can see them there on the 2 little Lego cars of the little Lego Paul Walker, rest in peace, over there on the on the DVD shelf, well, Blu-ray shelf. But what is the point in going back to basics when 10 was so ridiculous? Just do the same again, and then that's it. Then
sure, the shark and jumped, right? The shark and jumped a long time ago.
Where they went into space in a car with rockets attached to it, and it was completely normal and fine. And they did it from a disused air base that one of them I just happened to have friends with. It was like putting a jetpack on a Morris Minor for an English version. It was so ridiculous. And was that the same film where they used a slingshot on a crane? Well, it was on a tree where it's to jump over a ravine.
Yeah, I mean, you are right. They've jumped the shark at this point. It's so outlandish and ridiculous. It feels like going back to the start seems pointless. Just finish the story. Do better than Cody Rhodes has done. Finish it, and let's just leave it behind us, and we can just enjoy what we had and move on. I think is the best way with this. We'll move to something a bit more realistic from a real world, which is the Star Wars world now. There's a bit of news here. So Dave Filoni is directing a film which will focus on the New Republic, and it will unite the stories told in The Mandalorian, Book of Boba Fett, and Ahsoka. So it appears as though the D+ world is probably entering its endgame phase now. I think it's going to tie it together and draw a line on it. They're all sort of a bit too big stars, really, I suppose, to keep that one going. We've also got James Mangold, the director of Logan and Ford vs. Ferrari. He is going to be doing a film set in the history of the Force. So it's going to be back at the dawn of the Jedi. And following from that one, we've got Sharmeen Obaid Chinoy, who is a Canadian-Pakistan, mostly director of documentaries, from what I can gather. And she also did a couple of episodes of Ms. Marvel. She is going to be doing something in regards to the future, and it is going to be based on Rey creating a new Jedi Order. Matt, where do you sit with Star Wars at this point? They're giving us a lot of stuff, but it looks like they're going to be ending the Disney Plus. And I'm sort of okay with that because, much like with Marvel, it was running the risk of becoming too unruly, and I want them to streamline it a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I've got to admit, I've fell a little behind on Star Wars now. I don't know, like I never watched any of the most recent shows, and I'm a little behind, and it's kind of like that running train that you don't feel like you can keep up with sometimes, like I did with Marvel, and I'm starting to get a little bit with Star Wars now. Like I'm absolutely for like anything that's completely separate from the existing world, so I don't need any prior knowledge going in. So anything like basically anything we've had already, I'm fine with, and I probably will watch. It's just a case of when the pressure of having to watch a show becomes more of a challenge than the enjoyment of it in the first place, that's when you're going to lose me, because I've got a pretty low attention span. So yeah, I hope it doesn't go down that route with it in there, because just constant pumping of content over and over and over. But if it's anything like some of the more recent things that I've enjoyed, then listen, I'm all for it, and hopefully it will be to that same standard.
Fingers crossed. I mean, I'm kind of looking forward to Filoni ending up the Mandalorian run, because I think that's been my favourite bit of the new Star Wars run, if I'm perfectly honest. I've really enjoyed that one. So fingers crossed to that. Ed, is there anything in those three different directors that you'd be sort of interested in seeing? I mean, we've got the future, we've got the past, and we've got the Disney Plus, I suppose you'd call it.
Yeah, I think that the Disney Plus, I think Matt's right. We've got the amount of work you need to put in now to understand what's going on is just, it's too much for people to keep up with. You need more than a fountain pen and cheese popcorn, I think, to be really into all of that stuff. The future sounds interesting, right? Because let's do something different, like Matt said. So for me, of the latest Star Wars, after the prequels, and the less we talk about them, the better. Rogue One was Star Wars again. It was a fun Western in space, which is what The Mandalorian started as well, right? There's good, there's evil, there was plot twists, there was fighter chases, there was TIE fighters, there was everything you wanted from Star Wars that you got into. People were into it in the 70s and 80s, and then when it was brought back out in the 90s for people of our generation. So that's the only thing I'd look forward to, is the future, to go down that route again, to get us back to maybe to take the fast route and go back to basics. Let's make it about good and evil again, and not 17,000 different types of drones and bounty hunters that were mentioned once, in a book from 30 years ago that no one's read. For me, I think the future is probably the interesting one, and obviously, you talked about that director with a documentary background. Obviously, being female will be there's lots of ways of bringing different perspectives to something that we all know and love. No one should dislike Star Wars, not the first three. They're perfectly fine films that do what they need. It's the simplest good versus evil story. And if she can bring maybe a different viewpoint, documentary-wise, maybe it can be a bit more of a storytelling arc, which is what the original three were. They were a continual story with some twists in between, and you had a lovely ending where everyone got a medal and Chewbacca roared, and that's where it should have ended.
Yeah, I agree. Stu, you've kept up with everything, haven't you? So I think you've watched Ahsoka and Andor, I think, were the last two series.
No, I haven't watched that. I tried to watch Ahsoka, but then realised that one of the fatalities of my brain breaking down was bits of Clone Wars. So I need to. Other than me and Dave, friend of the show, Dave Evans, I don't know anyone else who watched Clone Wars anyway. So it didn't really matter if I didn't watch Ahsoka, because no one else would talk about it and ruin it for me. So that was my next thing, to watch all of Clone Wars again, so then I could watch Bad Batch as well, and just finish them all off, because I love Clone Wars. Well, I've got the box set of it anyway, before it came back and was finished properly. And I really enjoyed it, but I just don't remember it. So I thought, I'll watch this. I know I've watched this because I watched it either when he was small. But yeah, I don't remember any of it, so I'll watch it again and then watch Ahsoka properly, because obviously Mandalorian season 1 and 2, good. Boba Fett, shit. Other than the Mandalorian bits, and then Mandalorian 3 was pretty alright in the end. So, but you alright, it just needs to end now. You just tie it up, nice little bow, there, we're done. Move on. And the early stuff intrigues me, because like the what was it called? The Knights of the Old Republic game, which I never played. And when they were talking about the remake and it coming back, I thought, oh yes, finally something from stuff that I don't know about, so they're going to make it canon, and oh, that's exciting. And then it all gets cancelled again. Oh, shit. I'll have to go to the books, and which I'm not going to do. So something that we do, something in the past of lore that we don't know about is intriguing to me. There's obviously lots of scope there, and so it's bringing Rey back. I think she was done dirty with that last film, like a lot of them were, and that was silliness. With the Emperor on a string, basically. So if we're going down the Rey as a as a master kind of route, then yeah, fine. And just do it differently. We don't have to have the same thing. We don't have to have everyone who knows everyone, even though it's supposed to be a massive universe. Just have her in it on her own. No cameos. Just that. That'd be great.
Yeah. Draw a line under it, start again. I'd be all for that, to be fair. One last piece of news then. Jurassic World 4 has been greenlit with Dave Koepp, I believe it's pronounced, will be writing the script. So he wrote the original 1993 film and its sequel, The Lost World. Matt, I know you've been a fan and not so much a fan of the last of Jurassic World. You didn't like the last film. Was it Dominion? Was it? If I remember rightly. In that world, or
it's like I'm at risk of using the version of this phrase that George W. Bush used when it was "fool me once," and then they're in the starter, and then he goes "fool me once when I won't get fooled again," and he goes all like the Who. But basically, I don't want to pin my hopes on this because, like, I was so bitterly disappointed in the last one. So yeah, it's like, again, rename this podcast Back to Basics because that's exactly what they need to do. It just needs to be like, it doesn't need to be this overarching story about massive moths like the last one was. It just needs to be like, oh, we've learned our lessons. We're going to do a theme park. Oh, it fucks up again. Like, but just set it in London. Why? Like, if you need a twist, do you know what I mean? Like, just, I don't know. We've been burnt by this before. Unless it's going to be literally man has to hide in underground car parks because dinosaurs have literally took over the world. And he goes down that route with it. That's the only way I want to see it. Like, humans are the hunted ones now, and it's about that life, not, you know, the way that the last one was. So I'm not pinning much hope on it.
Well, that's what I thought the last one was going to be.
Yeah, so did I.
And then
I think they figured out that they couldn't possibly have the dinosaurs ruling the world. Like, I think just from a purely financial point, even though they spent a lot on it to get what they did, they would have needed to double their budget to try and get it so it was a world inhabited just by dinosaurs. But it ended up just looking shit and didn't really hit the mark, did it?
it was annoying more than anything else. But I don't know if it was annoying because we had these hopes that we were never really promised anyway, or we just got it into our head that was what the last film was going to be about, because it was kind of hinted at in the trailer that
Oh man, they weren't hinted at. It was basically
Well, it was all
fed to. Like,
Yeah.
Jeff Goldblum was supposed to be like, "Oh, it's Jurassic World. Oh, be careful what you wish for." That's just Jeff Goldblum's shit that he does. Yeah, it was they sold us that puppy. Like, yeah, this was like it was an Ofcom thing. This was.
Yeah. Ed, are you a fan of the Jurassic Park / World universe?
I mean, the originals were, you know, the original is a classic for a reason. It was groundbreaking at the time. Was it 93? I think, was it?
Mm-hmm.
From memory. And that's the thing that intrigues me with this. Doing a bit of research when you sent me over the questions, and it was maybe they're going back to some storylines. So I've seen they're going back to focus on the story rather than the effects, or, you know, making this big grandiose world with getting in the original writer. Because the first one was about story. You know, there was it obviously isn't plausible to make a theme park out of dinosaurs, but of all of the other plots in all of the other films, it's the most plausible. So hopefully there's maybe a focus on the story rather than on the effects or on the, you know, going down the Godzilla route of everything being smashed up and everything being broken. Maybe that's why they're, like Matt said, maybe the podcast should be called Going Back to Basics, because that's why the first one was so good, wasn't it? It was all set in that one quite big, but, you know, small theme park. So yeah, I'm with Matt. Maybe this time it can be someone getting, you know, eating on a toilet, but in a different country.
Well, we've got the game, haven't we, soon? That's based after everyone left. That's set like the next day after the first film.
Okay.
In a kind of, it looks a bit like RoboCop-y, like how that game is. Like, for fans of that film, they're gonna love it more than anything else, even if it's not the best game in the world. It's got that kind of vibe for me, but it looks amazing. So maybe that is something that we need, and that is the back to basic.
Did you ever play the theme park style game, Evolution, or whatever it was called?
Yeah.
It was good, man. I enjoyed that. I really enjoyed it. It was well made. Like, it was good. I don't do strategy games or anything like that, generally speaking, but it was good fun.
You should have it.
Is this a theme park version of Jurassic World?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Like, should have.
That's interesting. So I like those kind of games.
Like, it's because you've got to like make sure that your herbivores and your carnivores are split up, and then when it goes bad, it goes fucking bad quick. Like, the first thing that can go wrong in like theme park is that like no one's on the rides, whereas this is like your entire livestock get eaten.
Outstanding. I will have to check that one out then. Brilliant. Lovely. So that is the news. Matthew, have we had any listener questions in?
Boy, have we. Yeah, we have. I did have them on my screen a mere moments ago. But what is this podcast if not 4 segues? 1 moment.
I have said
Yes, I've got one. So Matt Goodington, thank you, Matt, has put, given cinema's supposed parlous state, should they concentrate a little less on just up-to-date releases and show more older re-releases if studios will allow? And what film would you really like to see on the big screen that you wouldn't have had the chance to, Stu?
I mean, yeah, they should do this. I mean, and Cineworld, to be fair, do it sometimes when they can be asked. So, you know what? Something like that I never got a chance to see, like Blade 2. Something. Oh no, actually, did I watch Blade 2 because we were at the very front, and that was a terrible experience. Not Blade 2. Something from the youth, because when we went, to be fair, when we went to watch the 3D version of the first Jurassic Park, that was an amazing experience. And when they did it to Phantom Menace as well, then it made the film better. I think Heat, actually, yeah, Heat. No, it's never seen Heat on a bigger screen. So yeah, I could do that at home, but I would never have. Yeah, Heat.
Ed, what about you? What would you like to see on the big screen that you haven't had a chance?
So my first thought, and I don't quite know, was the original Blade Runner. I think it's a dark, moody film with lots of like nuances, and the cinematography's all over the place, and it's brilliant, and it's broody, and I think that's perfect for the darkness of the cinema, and all you've got is to focus on is a screen. You can't get your phone out and get distracted. It's a really immersive world, isn't it? The original Blade Runner with Harrison Ford. So yeah, I think that was just my first thought was Blade Runner, the original.
Andy, what about you?
This might be recency bias, but when I went to see Wonka not that long ago, and I sat quite near the front in the big, massive super screen, and it just washed over me, and it was such a wonderful, happy experience. I'd quite like to see the original Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. I think that'd be, I don't know, it just made me feel like a big kid again. I think that'd be quite cool to see.
Yeah, that would be great. I it's one of my Desert Island DVD discs. But I'd want to do what people do for Rocky Horror, but with Spinal Tap, like actually be shown. People sing along, people dress up, do everything like that. And I don't think I've ever heard anybody ever show it or do it. But because like Lighthouse near us is having a reboot, isn't it? And if they'll like kick off and do stuff like that, I'd be really interested in the Lighthouse. We should try and get one of them on. Actually, I don't think that'd be too hard to sell either. And I'll ask them the question: will you still hear the police cars scream, pal? Which was always a thing that like genuinely put me off. Because nothing that takes you out of the ambience of a film than like the screeching of a cop car.
Surely with Spinal Tap though, Matt, we'll just turn it up to 11.
Exactly, lad. Exactly, 100%. Nicely done. Monty Dom 32. Monty, with the superhero films bombing and the endless franchise spin-offs and sequels bombing, will Disney ever get its groove back and have another golden age or Renaissance era handy? Do you think it will ever get back to that point?
Part of me thinks they will, but they need to not concentrate on the superhero stuff for a while. If you want Prime Disney for me is your animated stuff. And their concentration on making sure that, Star Wars is running and that the Avengers are running, they've sort of taken their eye off the ball a little bit, it feels like. They don't give Pixar enough credit either. like keep putting their films straight to Disney Plus rather than giving it a run in the cinema. So I think it was last week or the week before in America, they finally gave Soul a release in their cinema screen. And apparently it was an amazing success and even made the top 10 in the world because of how many people wanted to see it. So I think if they want to, they need to concentrate on what brought Disney to the party. They're there because of your Snow Whites, because of your classic animation. They need to give us something of that and not everything else. They've turned into a bit of a, what's the term? Jack of all trades, master of none, it feels like.
Yeah.
Ed, what about you? Do you think we'll ever get back to the point where we'll have like the Endgame saga and the Infinity War saga, and it'll be that media event that the world cares about, not just Marvel fans care about, when it's as big as that?
So to piggyback off Andy's point, I think it seems to me over the recent years, it's been originally Disney did movies and the merchandise came from the movies, and it feels like it's the other way around now. They've got the merchandise, and how can we keep flogging that merchandise with another reboot of another film or another, we didn't need that last Ant-Man. No one needed that, but they did it again in the hope that it might, sell an Ant-Man lunchbox or, a water bottle or whatever it is. So Marvel, I loved Marvel, and I could watch all of them. I was on a plane recently and toyed with watching Endgame for like the 12th time or whatever it is, and it's a long movie. But even I was staunchly into superheroes, and I think that X-Men have been done dirty over the years. I think they're definitely the best genre of superheroes. I think that ship has sailed a little bit now. I think even the diehards are getting bored. And I think we should be going back to, like what Andy said, going back to actually telling some stories. Let's get some interesting dialogue done. Let's just do some one-off films, Disney. Let Pixar do their thing and make something as incredible as Toy Story again. Let someone tell a story rather than let someone make a character to sell some merchandise. Like even with the last Toy Story, we had Spork or whatever it was, Sporky. Fun character, but he was definitely mostly made to sell action figures.
Mm-hmm. And Stu is probably the most diehard of all of them. Also, when it comes to like the Marvel franchise and everything else, where do you stand on this? How can they, if they can, get it back to those halcyon days of like people queuing in the streets to get in for like Marvel and Disney?
I don't think that's ever going to happen again anyway. Just because the way things are now, I think that was a proper, you had to be there to experience it kind of time with Endgame. But I mean, the clue is in the name, Disney, not Lucasfilm, not Marvel, Disney. I think that it's a clean sweep of fuck the other stuff off, or separate it properly and not interfere and leave it alone. And I mean, that's what I'm kind of dreading what Deadpool 3 is going to be like, because you can tell that it's going to be interference central. It's not going to be as good as the first two. Maybe it is. Who knows? But it just got that stench that it's going to be messed with too much. But well, that's what I'd say. Just go back to being Disney Pixar again, and nothing else. That works. You don't extend yourself too much, because that's what's happened. And fueling the Disney Plus train has made it even worse. And when you remember when it launched, and we said on here, are you going to get it because it's Disney? It's all the old Disney films, and they might have in original things on there, and it looks all good. And it's like, oh yeah, well, I like the Disney films, and why not? We'll give it a go. And it was cheap on it to start with, and now it's grown into what it is now, and it's too much. And even Disney Plus is too much, and there's no time to watch all this stuff anymore. Back to basics. There's your title.
There you go. Well, thank you, everybody, for getting your questions in. And there's nothing too silly we won't discuss, even for two very normal questions for a change, which is quite nice. So get your questions in and we will answer.
Super. Thank you very much. So I know we discussed it last week, but what have you seen in the cinema, on TV, wherever? What have you been watching lately, Matt?
Have we mentioned Gladiators? Yes, in 24.
Very briefly mentioned it when the debut was out. So like we're what 4 weeks in now, are we?
Yes. So I've been watching Gladiators. I missed episode 3, so I watched that yesterday, and I watched episode 4 today with the good lady. And there's some really good bits in it, and there's some not so good bits in it. But it's still just quite. You can have it on, do whatever you like. You're not missing anything. It's not quite as cringy as the first episode with the one guy who like had a fake injury and then couldn't manage to kick on with it. But there's these really like weird, forced bits of drama, like the referee, Mark Clattenburg, will make some call that is weird or disqualify someone, or one of the gladiators. Like some of them have personalities and some of them don't, which is really weird. Like they'll have a persona when some of them don't. It's just, it's complete switch off TV that I'm quite enjoying, and it has no consequence on my life whatsoever. It doesn't matter when I watch it or how I watch it or what I do. It's funny because like I said this in the group chat, but Sam asked me like, do I find Diamond's figure attractive? And I just answered that millisecond too quickly. Yes. It was like literally like fractionally too quick. It was like, do you find that figure? Yes. Yeah, I felt that that evening was ruined. But yeah, I'm enjoying it. It's fine as it is. And I've been watching. I finished Griselda on Netflix. The story of Griselda Blanco, the woman described by who the fuck was it? Who was Narcos about? I've completely lost my train of thought. Basically, as the only woman that was ever feared in that world was Griselda Blanco, and the crazy story behind. And they fit into like, I think it's 4 or 6 episodes, like so much in those episodes. They do not waste a minute. Really, really good program, start to finish. Nearly all in foreign language as well, which like shouldn't put anybody off. It's a great story. And yeah, you've seen all of it before in various iterations of Scarface and everything else, but definitely worth a watch. And, you know, for it to then, you know, based on real life as well, makes it all the more kind of interesting as a story. But yeah, definitely worth a go.
Oh, lovely. Ed, have you watched anything this year? Well, it doesn't have to have been this week.
So, yeah. So I have binge watched, and it's a guilty pleasure of mine, Sign the Witness on the BBC. With back in a previous life, in a previous job, postmortems was part and parcel of what I had to do, and I've always had a morbid curiosity of it. But it's back to what it was 10 years or so ago. It jumped the shark itself a little bit with people getting buried underground in Mexico when they shouldn't have been there. Why a forensics team from London would be in Mexico looking stuff up, those types of things. But it's back to just doing sort of, you know, gang warfare and human trafficking and all the kind of what you sadly is real life, what I'm sure they actually have to deal with. So that's been really good. And there's I think three episodes, so 2 parts, so 6 of them to catch up on, which I did over the last couple of weeks. And I guess the only other appointment viewing for me on TV has been Taskmaster, the last Taskmaster, which I just finished, which was probably the best one for a long, long time. And I love that show, and I can rewatch it on YouTube. Had my favourite series, but I think the last one that just came on with Judy and Claire and loads of other people was probably the best one for 4 or 5 years. That's 4 or 5 seasons, I'd say. So they're probably the 2 that I've been watching, other than catching up on a lot of sport and Match of the Day and all the other good stuff that just you tinker on. And I did watch the first Gladiators, Matt, and it definitely was a fake injury.
Yeah, it was.
That bloke from Lancashire, there was definitely nothing wrong with him. If he can take the Travelator with a torn hamstring, then he's got. Vince McMahon tore both of his quads, and I don't think he would have got up at that Travelator.
Super. The one thing I really enjoyed about the last season of Taskmaster, which some of the ones before hadn't quite hit, when it was on during the pandemic, because you lost the crowd, it didn't work quite as well. Yeah. And I feel like it took them a couple of seasons just to get back into the swings of it. Whereas this time, Greg very much plays up to being the character of the Taskmaster to the audience. A bit of a panto character.
Yeah,
and
it's definitely panto.
He got it. Yeah, it was perfect this season. He got the balance just right, and it was as good as when it was on Dave, I thought, this season.
Yeah.
Really enjoyed it. Brilliant.
No, I haven't heard that name for a long, long time, Julian Clary. Is he? I presume he's exactly the same.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he was wonderful from start to finish.
Yeah.
Absolutely, exactly what you'd imagine. Just queening it up to the best of his ability. Every one of his prizes was linked to some kind of phallus or arse in some way, shape, or form, and he acted like he didn't want to be there, but genuinely seemed to love it. He was they always have one on Taskmaster, an elder statesman, and he was perfect for it. And this series just gone.
I remember there was a Sky One kind of game show thing called Prickly Heat years ago. I think Davina McCall might have hosted it as well, and it was like it was an 18 to 30s game show where you got pissed up and do stupid things on the beach, and it was in the era of Booze Britain and stuff like that on Bravo. So when fun was allowed to be televised. But I don't think I've seen Julian Clary since then. And that's probably about 20 years. I didn't know he was back doing stuff. This is intriguing.
It's worth a watch just for him and Sam Campbell. I'd never known of Sam Campbell before, and I think he's legitimately bonkers. And he was perfect for the environment it was. So I think if you've not seen Taskmaster before, that's a really good place for someone to start. Stu, what have you been watching?
Halfway through, Harlan Coben, is that his name? The guy he's got always got this deal with Netflix, but there's one rogue season of something called Shelter that's on Prime. And I thought, well, until them bastards put the money up and put adverts in, which makes me not want to watch anything anymore, I'm going to tick this off the box because I love all that stuff. And it's all completely different to all the other stuff. And this is probably the reason it's on there. It's more like a Stranger Things drama, like drama mystery compared to all the other stuff on like Fool Me Once and stuff like that, and The Stranger. It's nothing like them really. It's all about like early 20s kids, like in well, I presume they're early 20s actors playing high school kids, because you can tell. But it's all right actually. It's not the best thing in the world. It's not the worst. But it's like the same kind of formula where every episode leaves it at a cliffhanger. And so I'm 4 out of 8 of that so far. And I've actually got it kind of, what you're getting with these shows. It is proper, like, it's not quite background stuff because you would miss things if you were pissing about on your phone. But you don't really have to think that much while you're watching it. But like Ed said, other than football and glory of beating supposed decent teams, I played something which actually made me kind of tear up, which is what it's designed to do, and it's called Before Your Eyes. It's a VR game where you control things by blinking. And I'll just give you obviously you've not got it, and so you're not going to play it anyway, but Before Your Eyes is a unique VR narrative adventure which tells the story of a soul's journey into afterlife using blinking. The story begins after your death. So already it's not very nice. So you're kind of reliving your memories and stuff like this, and like from your past, and it's very emotional. And watching that after a few beers was probably not the best idea in the world. It was only like 2 hours long, 3 hours if you want to do everything. But it was really, really good, and it reminded me not of the same kind of thing, but when I played Journey for the one and only time, and I thought, yeah, that is perfect. This is amazing. If you've got any kind of VR, I don't know if it's on anything else, but PSVR 2, it's definitely on there, and it's worth it. I think it was about 15 quid. Maybe wait for a sale, get it for a tenner or something like that. But yeah, it was well worth it. It was amazing. Before Your Eyes.
Oh, superb. Excellent. So I am currently deep into my Oscars watch for this. So I've got one live action feature film left to watch, which is Napoleon. And I really don't want to watch it, but like I've come this far, I may as well finish it off. So the ones that I'll mention that I think are worthy of mention, I went to see The Iron Claw. Did an unlimited screening this past week. It's out, I think, next Friday. Matt, you will love it. It is genuinely excellent. The actual in-ring stuff is, it's competently put together. It's nothing spectacular. There's no 5-star matches, but you don't go in expecting that, let's be honest. Knowing the story as I do, there's bits of it like they've clearly changed to make it a coherent narrative, and that doesn't take away from it. It works perfectly as a movie. Genuinely don't understand how it's not got any Oscar nominations, because it's some of the most amazing performances I've seen, and like it's beautifully rendered in the fact that like it starts in the late 60s and goes through to the early 90s, and you believe you're there at each point of it. So quite how it's not up for any cinematography is beyond me. Just an outstanding movie that, whether you're a wrestling fan or you're not, I think you will get something from it, because the story is there. It's the story of a family breaking down and the one son being left having to hold it all together. The wrestling's just sort of superfluous to the story, really, but it's fantastic. I saw American Fiction on Friday this week. Loved it. Absolutely brilliant. I'm a big fan of Jeffrey Wright. I always find him to be such a warming presence on screen. And he's a bit like Larry David. He was quite curmudgeonly, but he also had a bit of a soft side, which possibly Larry David doesn't have in the Curb. He was great in this. It was a very funny film that clearly had a message about how we consume our media, and especially about how people of colour struggle to tell stories about anything that isn't the quote-unquote black experience. Like, he very much makes the joke of... so there's another writer who writes a book, and it's called We Lives in the Ghetto is the name of the book, and it's a massive seller. Whereas he writes a book called The Frog, and nobody wants to read it because it's not about the black experience. It's just about people who happen to be black, and that's the story of their life. Fantastic. It tells a really clever joke within the first 30 seconds, and I thought, fuck it, I know I'm going to love this film. So he got me on side early doors, and it was great. The last film I want to mention is one I literally finished 15 minutes before we got together for this podcast. I watched The Beekeeper, and I should hate it, but it was fucking brilliant. It was proper Jason Statham doing a terrible American accent, swinging for the fences nonsense. Joe, you will love it.
Do you now regret not watching it in the cinema, though, like you said?
No. I'm glad I watched it at home, in fairness. It's not one that I think would have been made better by the cinema experience. It was perfectly fine where it was, so I'm quite happy with how I watched it. But yeah, brilliant. Right, so the next question is yours, please, Edward.
Yeah, so my question simply is, what is your favourite or your best opening scene to a film or movie? Don't know who wants to take it first. Stu, I'm looking at you.
I mean, there's some I had three that jumped off the page straight away. One I'm going to leave because I presume that I think Andy will use it. So I want to say Scream. Just because it was unlike anything ever we've seen before. Obviously, we've seen it a lot since. But killing off your main character within 5 minutes was genius. Absolute genius. And the fact that she was in everything. She was in all the build-up, all the hype and everything. It was a big comeback role, and then she was dead straight away. Superb. With what else can happen now after this? And I was obviously way too young. I can't even remember how I watched it first time round. I was going to say I couldn't grow a beard then, but I still can't, so I couldn't have gone in that way. But yeah, Scream was perfect for this answer because it just was. It was unique, it was special, and it still works now. And obviously it's been parodied to fuck, which is always a good sign. But yeah, Scream.
Yeah, Andy?
So it's interesting you say you're going to leave one of them off because you think that's going to be my answer. But actually Scream was on my list 3. And that's what I was going to go for because it took the Psycho killing off your big name actor. But Psycho did that like within 45 to 60 minutes, did it immediately. And it really was like the most impactful way to start a film, which Drew Barrymore had been front and centre of promoting. So excellent. So my answer I'm going to go with then, if I can't go with Scream, is going to be Inglourious Bastards. I'm a big fan of Tarantino anyway, so I knew this was going to be my kind of film. But the actual performance by Christoph Waltz, where he just walks into that home trying to find, he was the Jew hunter, wasn't he? That was his character name. And the way he sits there so calmly having a drink, talking to this person while this person is quite clearly terrified of this human being finding what's underneath the floorboards. The tension that they managed to build up in that opening scene is just next level. Absolutely outstanding. And Christoph Waltz, who I think is a really, really good actor, I still think that's his best role, and that was probably the role that got him the most fame. Just a wonderful performance that started that strong and didn't let up throughout it. The absolute ferocity that he played Colonel Lando with was incredible. And that scene was the stamp on the performance for me.
He's got an evil mouth.
Yeah, proper real baddie, isn't it?
Yeah. Like, I can't see him ever doing a romantic comedy or something. Because he'll always be Lando. He's just evil. Yeah.
The one of my favourite lines in all of film when it comes to delivery is from that film, and it probably gets like overlooked quite a bit, and it's when he goes, "This German wants to die for his country. Oblige him." It's the greatest line. I absolutely love it. It's just like the bollocks on it. It's just brilliant. For me, because of like what came before it and the zero expectations of it, and then what it meant, and like cinema, film changed after this moment, and it's the start of The Matrix. It was just, you don't know what's going on. It goes down the fucking phone and there's Trinity and she's dialing in, no explanation of what's going on. You've got bullet time. Everything's just crazy. And then all of a sudden she pisses off down the telephone, and you're left without a breath because you don't know what you've just witnessed. And now the rest of the story is about to unfold. It's just, nothing was the same after that in terms of like how an action film can start and how a story can be told by being fed absolutely nothing. I think it's phenomenal. And then to see it in like 4DX, like last year or the year before, again, I felt exactly that again, but then strapped into a chair, having me drink pissed all over me. So it's just like, yeah, God, I love that opening scene of The Matrix. It's the first thing I'm going to do when this podcast ends, is I'm just going to go watch the start of it now and enjoy it all over again.
Cool. So for me, I had three that jumped out, and none of you have mentioned them. So Gangs of New York, I think that opening fight scene is epic, and it's Daniel Day-Lewis stealing the show. Similarly, Saving Private Ryan, I've only ever watched it once. Can't watch it again. The realism of that is nuts. Like, to the way that you start on the boats and you watch the trap that one of the drawbridges go down, and they all just walk out into this sea of bullets. It's just, unbelievably. The fact that I remember at the time men that were alive saying that was exactly what it was like is a testament to how good that scene is. But for me, and maybe it links with what we've been talking about in the rest of the pod, but I've gone for Up. Talking of Pixar, that opening 3 or 4 minutes is the most I've ever bawled in a cinema. I was there. Jacob wasn't born. I didn't have my little boy at the time. I was just watching it. And it's, your cynical head is, it's an exposition dump, right? Here's the story of everything that you need to know for the rest of the film. But it's done in almost silence. It's picture perfect. Every note is pitch perfect. We have the two people, Ellie and Carl, meeting when they're kids, and they fall in love and they think they're going to have kids and they can't. I mean, this is a Pixar Disney film. We shouldn't be dealing with sadness and death. And we get to death, and then all of a sudden it's like, there's the reason for Carl being the grumpy curmudgeon that he is we've seen it all, and you then get to see the rest of the film knowing that he's coming from a place where, he's lost the love of his life and he couldn't have kids and all this kind of other stuff, and he's trying to fulfill this wish. And the fact that it gets paid off at the end when you open the book and you realise that the journey's been everything they did together regardless. It's just, it's why when we were talking about Disney earlier, it's why we should just let people tell stories. That doesn't need a sequel, doesn't need a prequel. It's all in that one. That first 4 or 5 minutes could have been a short, and it probably would have billions of views on YouTube. It's perfect animated cinema for me.
Interesting. That was the third film on my list of 3. Otherwise, it's beautiful.
Was the other one The Dark Knight?
No, it was Inglourious Bastards, Up, and Scream with the three I'd got on my. That one would have been up there. And to be fair, I was really like the beginning of Dark Knight Rises. I think is a really good, interesting way that they introduced Bane into that world. I thought was fantastic.
Yes,
Goodfellas could arguably be in there as well. Love the setting of introducing us to Henry. Fantastic.
Oh man, that Bane accent really is something, isn't it? You fight like a younger man. That's pretty good. That's quite.
That was excellent to me.
I was quite impressed.
Good.
No fucking clip that.
Close my eyes. You were Tom Hardy, mate.
Well, it's been said.
That's what he said to Sam.
That's how he got over the diamond thing, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Just close your eyes and pretend I'm Tom Hardy.
Oh, speaking of clipping it, like a very, very quick segue, because I know we're kicking on with time. I'm about when this finishes. It's so shit that we conceded that fourth goal to Man United, because when Pedro Neto scored, I'll record every commentary I do. I proper channeled my like South American football commentator, and I screamed down the microphone. The only thing that I didn't do was do like a fucking WCW Tony Schiavone and say, "This is the greatest night in the history of our great sport." Because that was like the next thing to like come out of my lips. But yeah, God. Anyway, sorry, we move on.
I mean, I was bent over today at that fourth goal. Not in that kind of way, but you had the handrail things at Chelsea because of the safe standing, which is just bolting some railings on.
Mhm.
But because you're standing there, it's lower than normal, so you can put your hands on it if you want, but it's just there for show, really. And so as soon as the fourth went in, I leaned forward and I could have literally been broken in half. Oh, because it was just below the nipples, but above the belly, and it's not exactly where you want to be leaning. And thankfully, no one rushed me from behind. But it wasn't very comfortable, and it's kind of like sore now. Now I've been laughing, and it's not very advisable to score for Chelsea. But there we are. Back to normality.
I wish we had a soundboard so that I could like play dodgy things Stu said, because it was from behind. Between the nipple and the stomach. Yeah, there was quite a few. That was the most Kenneth Williams you've ever been, Stu.
Oh.
As a cage fighting super fan, I often just go back to I wore a rope as a belt. That's one of my favourite stews.
Yeah, but that was a practical solution to a bad problem.
Yeah, it was also something that happens on The Simpsons.
Well, I don't watch The Simpsons, so I don't know.
So you don't imagine it in real life, Stu. That's my point.
I saw another tweet earlier about The Simpsons that they predicted those Apple goggle things, people walking around wearing those Apple goggles. Like The Simpsons are just so ridiculous. I mean, I suppose they've got that many episodes just throwing shit at the wall. Something's going to happen.
I mean, at this point,
Ridiculous.
At this point, I'm kind of guessing it could just be the other way around, that people are watching The Simpsons and getting ideas for things.
It could be. Yeah, that would
Like
make
Star
sense,
Trek.
wouldn't it, to be fair. Right, my question's up next. What is the best fourth film in a series or franchise or whatever you want to call it? Stu.
I was going to mention Jurassic World, just because the first one was actually really good, and it was better than the third one. But then we've had more of them, so does it really count?
But I mean, if you think the fourth one's the best one, then yeah.
But the old franchise, isn't it? So.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But the real answer is obviously Fury Road, because it's brilliant.
Yeah, it is an excellent film, isn't it, in fact?
We talked about it for about 20 minutes last week, so I don't want to talk about it again. It's we could just name this podcast Fury Road Talk and do it every single week and never get sick of it. But yeah, it's a wonderful, wonderful film, and it's easily better than the first three.
Yeah, like the first three don't even come close to they. Like, I didn't watch the first three until probably about 4 or 5 years ago. It's fairly recent. It was the first time I watched them, and they're fine. But yeah, the number 4 is tremendous. Matt, I'm guessing 4 probably ranks quite highly for you as well for Fury Road.
Yeah, not high enough to trouble my list. I'm going to be super unpopular here, and I'm going to go with Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire.
And me.
Oh, here we go. And I'll tell you for why. I don't want to steal your thunder, Ed. So if you need me to mention Rocky IV, I will. But Goblet of Fire was the first one where it moved away from being super just kids, and fucking Diggeroy gets clarted at the end, and then that's the bit. That's the change. Like someone gets actually murdered, and then it then moves on into a slightly darker world as it goes on, and then we see the buds of romance start, and we see everything else, and it's where Rocky 4, it doesn't jump the shark, but it's definitely like the worst of the good Rocky films in terms of like a story. Goblet of Fire is where the story evolves and it carries on then into what it ends up becoming, a much darker story as it goes on. So yeah, Goblet of Fire for me.
Yeah, and me. It's where the books turned as well. So the first 3 books are perfectly fine, but they're kids' books. This one I read as a teenager, just about a teenager, I think. And yeah, it's where the films also grow up a bit more. That all the kids are like 14, 15, so they can actually act now, or act better anyway. And there's more in the good actors are allowed to, to shine. So Gary Oldman gets more in this film, Brendan Gleeson, Alan Rickman, Voldemort, Ray Fiennes, they all kick in. And like Matt just said, someone dies at the end. This is serious now. Harry Potter's starting to fancy girls. It's all very much more interesting than the first 3, which are definitely kid-based films, and they all obviously remain that way. But as a big pothead, definitely Goblet of Fire.
It's weird because that's where I've stopped, and I didn't watch any more after that. Which I enjoyed them. I just need to get over it. I think
it's the second. It's my second favorite book, and it's probably the best film, I think, of all of them as well. I think.
Yeah, I think I actually agree with you there. It's not my 4th film, don't get me wrong. It's the best of the Harry Potter films, and it's probably the second best book. I think Half-Blood Prince is my favourite one, because I don't think she's a very good writer, if I'm honest, generally speaking. Because she followed that up with Order of the Phoenix, which is an absolutely dog shit book. It's written so badly. But yeah, Half-Blood Prince I think is my favourite of the book.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. So I'd put 2 films on my list because I assumed either Stu or Matt was going to say Mad Max Fury Road. And to be honest, I'm kind of stunned that you didn't go with Rocky 4. I really thought that was going to be your cup of tea.
It would have if it wasn't like the worst of them. It's just whereas the Harry Potters go up,
yeah,
Rocky goes down to a point. Then Harry Potter then goes off on nosedives. But yeah.
So my favourite 4th is The Muppets Christmas Carol. I watched it before Christmas, and I love that film anyway. But watching it on the big screen, I was just blown away at actually how brilliant it is. Like, it's one that I always watch, but I think because I've seen it so many times, I tend to watch it either as background noise or, if you're scrolling Twitter or something. But being in the cinema, being forced to put everything away and just watch this on the screen, it just reminded me what a wonderful movie it is, what a heartwarming, fantastic movie it is. And the fact that Michael Caine doesn't treat the Muppets like they're, Muppets. He treats them like they're his co-stars. He's actually acting with them like it's a proper Shakespearean play, or Dickensian play, I suppose it would be. He really gave it socks, and it really showed on the screen. It's such a great film. So Muppets Christmas Carol is my favourite 4th in a series of films. Q, you're up next, please.
And I'm just waiting to watch Ed's face because before we started recording, he had to ask what this even meant.
Yeah, not a clue. whatever I say post this, I am winging it.
So basically, American, is it just American or was it worldwide?
I think it's worldwide because copyright laws exist everywhere. They must be international.
So basically, copyright law, generally, once it gets to the 100-year mark, after 100 years, you can do whatever the fuck you want with anything. So that's why we had that weird Winnie the Pooh stuff last year, Blood and Honey. And obviously Steamboat Willie happened a few weeks ago. And if you haven't seen it yet, go and look at the trailer for Mouse, which is a first-person game in the style of Steamboat Willie, which looks ridiculous and amazing at the same time. So from that point of view, is this statute of limitation of 100 years for copyright law a good thing because we've had to wait for 100 years to be able to do things with Mickey Mouse. Not that way. Although it's open to suggestion now. Do whatever the fuck you want. It's free. Or should it be like 50 years to give people an actual chance? Because after 50 years of an IP, are the people who created it really caring anymore? Because that seems to be more fair to me. Andrew, you look intrigued.
I think it should be, I don't know, 75, 50, whatever years after the last appearance of that character. So with someone like Steamboat Willie, fuck it, they haven't used Steamboat Willie version of Mickey Mouse for, forever and a day, so whatever. I'm pretty sure I read that Superman is up in 4 years' time, I think it is. Superman is still being used, and Batman, yeah. Those characters are still being used very regularly. Now, when it comes down to it, the version of Superman that will hit public domain will be the one that can't fly. It'll be the one with, got the S drawn in it, a black marker rather than, the one that we associate with Superman now. So it's very much a very basic bitch version of Superman. But the thing is that the roots of that character you still see now in their work. They're still using that character. So for them to now just say, well, you can use it, I don't think is right. If Disney was still using Steamboat Willie, boy, would they want any fucker to just be able to use that character in some really shoddy horror, much like Winnie the Pooh. When we had a Winnie the Pooh film, the last one I remember, 2011 was the Heffalump. I don't know if there's been one since then. Oh, we had the Christopher Robin film, didn't we? That was mid-2010s. So they are still using that IP. So for it to just go to anyone to be able to do whatever the hell they want with it doesn't sit right with me. If it was a dead IP that hasn't been used for 50 years, for example, fine. That's your fault for not using it. Anyone can use it now then.
But on the flip side, what if by doing this, it got to 49 years and then they just put some troglodyte shite out? Like the perfect example, Fantastic Four. They put that film out for the sole reason to keep it because they would have lost it if they'd left it another year. So they released that thing.
Yeah, I mean, there's always going to be a line with these things and you've got to draw a line somewhere, haven't you? I suppose. I don't know where that line is. I mean, maybe you could appeal it. Yeah, if it's your property, I don't think it should be all and sundry just gets access to it because it's been so many years. Or if it's 50 years from when the creator of that character dies, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe that would be a way around it. I don't know.
Yeah, that's fair. Matt?
I don't know. I'd be pretty aggrieved if someone was making money off something that they had absolutely nothing to do with just because of the mere passage of time. I'm not sure why. I don't think I think 50 years is way too short an amount of time because Star Wars by now would be in the public domain if it was 50 years and we get enough Star Wars as it is. I said it earlier, much less than every fucking time.
Star Wars.
Exactly. Maybe one I would endeavour to watch. I don't think there should be a cap on it. Full stop. If I'm honest with you, because when it comes to then dross that you get on the back of it, and you like the Jungle Book and all the iterations of that and everything else, and the amount of times that I'm playing Assassin's Creed Valhalla at the moment. It's all Thor this and Thor that, and then you've got Marvel doing it, and you've got this doing it and that doing it, and I just think it dilutes things when then everybody gets an opportunity to get their hands on it, and they will try and do something different and unique. I'm not for it, if I'm honest. I know that might be like Tory with a lowercase t, but it's kind of how I feel about it, unfortunately.
No, I'm the same, Matt. I think someone has, if you've been brave enough to put something you've created out into the world, that should be yours for however long you want it to be, and not for it to be bastardized or messed around with, because that is essentially your thoughts in word form or in pictorial form. I think 100 years is perfect. By 100 years, you're a generation or two away from whoever created that. I think 100 years is perfectly fine, because I think anything before that, there's a chance that the creator's still alive, or the spouse or the offspring of that creator is alive, watching something that their family member has created, being used for whatever the hell someone else wants to do, to piggyback on to make some money out of it. It's essentially like someone using one of your pets or your kids for whatever they want to do, because you created that thing, whatever it is. I don't think it should be just in anyone else's hands. Personally, I think 100 years is, you're 2 generations away. I think that's perfect.
Where do you sit with this, Stu?
I think I've kind of come round to that way of thinking now, actually. I mean, I thought at first it was the fact that we could have alternative versions of stuff. But I think Matt and Ed have got a point, though, that, yeah, someone's created it. I mean, we ain't going to be around in 97 years' time when someone comes and steals our stuff off here. So that doesn't matter. But, yeah, I think 100 years probably is right, because it's quirky enough now to see weirdness like this to not affect anything. And like the Superman thing, I mean, they've appealed Mickey Mouse over and again, haven't they? Just because it's the thing of the whole company. But yeah, I think 100 years is probably fair, and there's probably a reason why that's not changed in hundreds of years. That it's still the same, and things obviously, like, we're going to see Pong go into the public domain, and we might still be around for that, maybe. But again, will we really care at that point when we're dribbling out of our eyes and all kinds of things? So, yeah, I think it's around the houses, but I think you've convinced me. 100 years is okay.
I'm interested, because I don't know if it works the same for music. So I think, like, when we hit 2060, I don't think Beatles music then becomes public domain. That might be something we can discuss in a future music cast anyway, but I do think there's a slight difference between how they do it. But very interesting thought. Yeah. Matt, your question, please.
So I want to know your Mount Rushmore of comedic actors, as in individuals, not characters. Who appears on the Mount Rushmore for you? The 4 names that come to mind, Andy.
So the first name that came to my head was Bill Murray. So you've got Caddyshack, Ghostbusters, Groundhog Day, Scrooge. He's got one of the best cameos ever in Zombieland, The Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou, The Man Who Knew Too Little. Like, the guy's just got it when it comes to comedy. And he's not a outlandish comedian. Like, he does have that in Caddyshack, that he can be silly. But his comedy doesn't always necessarily come from that. I think he's fantastic because of it. Tina Fey is the next one on the list. 30 Rock is a top 5 US sitcom. Fucking adore that show, which is incredible. She's written and starred in Mean Girls, Sisters, Kimmy Schmidt, Muppets Most Wanted, Baby Mama, Soul, Whiskey Tango Foxtrot. Her autobiography is really, really hilariously funny, called Bossy Pants. Tina Fey is one of my favourite human beings, and she can do the both, where she's a writer and she's an actor. I really think that's a fantastic trait. Steve Martin. So he's in the original Muppets movie, The Jerk, The Man with Two Brains, Three Amigos, Little Shop of Horrors, The Dentist. He's one of my all-time favourite characters. I've said it before on this podcast. So he's got to be up there. Dirty Rotten Scoundrels. Yeah. And plus, Only Murders in the Building. He had a bit of a shaky 2000s, but he's come back strong with Only Murders. And the final name, I really struggled to pick someone because there were so many great. Eddie Murphy missed out because he had, I would put Eddie Murphy's 80s up against anybody in the world. He was incredible. But unfortunately, the 80s were 30 odd years ago or 40 odd years ago at this point. It's been a long time. So the name that I've gone with is Robin Williams. I think he was a triple threat when it came to actually performing comedy. In that, he did TV, he did film, and he's done stand-up, and he was at the top of all of those fields. Mork and Mindy, Good Morning Vietnam, Hook, Fisher King, Mrs. Doubtfire, Jumanji, Birdcage Jack. He had 3 Oscar nominations before he won his Oscar for Good Will Hunting, which I know that's not one of his comedic roles, but he could show that he had such range that he was able to do that. And I think his performance in Good Will Hunting, even though it was a straight character, he managed to bring the comedy with it as well. To manage to give some levity to some quite tough conversations that he was having between his character and Will Hunting. So that's my Mount Rushmore.
Excellent. Ed, what about yourself?
So yeah, Andy's ticked off 2 of mine, and I think Stu's. So yeah, I had Bill Murray and Steve Martin on mine as well for everything he's just said. I've also gone for Rowan Atkinson.
No, completely fair.
I'm not a Bean fan, but I am completely aware that clowning is an art form, and he nailed it. But add to that, his sketch comedy in the 70s and 80s, and then obviously Blackadder is an all-time classic. And he showed an ability to not just be one character, which is what I found myself doing a lot of with this list. I realised that, Ryan Reynolds is Ryan Reynolds in every film he's in, and you start to realise that a lot of these comedic actors are just themselves in every film that they are, which is why I went for, even though, again, I'm not a biggest fan of his work, Sacha Baron Cohen. He creates characters and plays different people in pretty much everything he does. They're obviously all very over-the-top bombastic alter egos of parts of his brain, but he's shown he can act in other films, but all of his characters are there are some unique differences with all of them, which is, I think, shows his acting ability, rather than, if this was a top 4 of comedians, for me he wouldn't be anywhere near the top 50 probably. But in terms of the characters he creates and the acting that he does in those characters and how immersed he gets into them, he fooled most of America into thinking that people from Kazakhstan were exactly like Borat, for goodness sake. So, he's got some real chops about him, and some he's brave in what he does as well and what he tries to do. So I've gone for him. But yeah, I also had like Jim Carrey and Ben Stiller and all those types of people on the list as well. But I toyed with Will Ferrell, but he went down the list of he's just Will Ferrell and everything.
Fair. Well, what about you, Stu?
I mean, just the fact that we had the moments of Richard Madeley dressed up as Ali means that he has to work, and saying Boyakasha and being a thing, just wonderful.
Did you really?
There's so much. I mean, the whole Bruno gets underplayed as well. Bruno is excellent. Yeah, the 2 that Andy mentioned already, Bill Murray. Actually, no, I want to mix it up. I've got Bill Murray, Eddie Murphy is on my list because of the 80s and Nutty Professor. Just early 90s, was that, I presume?
Yeah.
He was hilarious. I don't care about all the stuff since, and this is not a list of personality or your current work, as you can tell from the other 2. The other 2, Leslie Nielsen. Just
great pick.
Just dry as anything. I can't think you actually ever heard him laugh, which sounds like a strange thing to say, but I can't think of it. Just to be able to play such straight roles in just stupid films over and over again. It's like you said, a clowning around is an art form.
Yeah.
And he's a clown without playing a clown, which is bizarre. But who was a clown and a bit of a Tory, I suppose, but still. John Cleese. Because you don't get half of this shit without John Cleese and Fawlty Towers anyway. So he has to be recognised for what he did, and A Fish Called Wanda, obviously. But yeah, I think John Cleese never gets talked about anymore because of his issues and his opinions and things that he's got since. And he's an old man and he's a bit bitter and twisted now, but still, 70s, 80s, superb.
Fair. So for me, and the number 1 isn't my number 1 of the list, but someone that just, whenever I see his face, he physically makes me laugh. Anything he's in, he physically makes me laugh. And it's Paul Rudd. I see him in anything, and I just have a smile on my face, like regardless of what character he's playing and what he's doing, and that's comedy. It's the feel good factor of comedy. And the same with Leslie Nielsen. Like, I don't think there's a huge like a body of work that I have seen outside of like Naked Gun and Airplane and stuff like that, but just he is that style of deadpan comedy that like I can't get enough of and will never not be funny, and that's why he's a great, because of so many years on. And he was in like SummerSlam '92 adverts or something like that as well, where like The Mystery of the Undertaker or whatever. I can't remember what year it was, probably a little earlier than that. Jim Carrey, for obvious reasons. Like, yes, he's the same in a lot of the roles that he's in, but he's had such like a unique. He's been in so much that has like touched millions. There's always a precursor to being a paedophile, isn't it? That, but
Like the Sonic.
yes. But I think just the body of his works like speaks for itself when it comes to all the stuff that he's done. And then someone who I think is way more diverse than like it comes out, and then will be Jack Black. He has the family film in his locker, which is fine, but then he has like the Tenacious D movie and all of the stuff related to Tenacious D, which is, if people that now like Jack Black because of Super Mario, and they like got their kids to watch some of his back catalogue, they'd be horrified at how disgusting his comedy is, especially when it comes to some of the stuff on like the Tenacious D DVDs and the skits they used to do as an early band. Like, he's a very, very funny person, doesn't take himself very seriously at all. And again, one of those faces, he just puts a smile every time you see him. So yeah, those four for me. I'm unconventional, a few of them, but it's about kind of what that does to you, doesn't it?
Yeah, you need to watch Dead and Loving It. That's
exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah, Dracula, Dead and Loving It, Matt.
Great.
Yeah, it's a great Nielsen performance. There was one story I heard about Leslie Nielsen when he was working for WWF, as it was. So the guy who played the captain in the police squad, I can't remember the guy's name. He hadn't worked for a while, and Leslie Nielsen said to, well, I assume Vince McMahon, such and such hasn't worked for so long. Can you please hire him to just come in and do something? You can take the money you'll pay him out of my wages. And I think, well, that just shows what a great person he was, as well as a great comedian. So yeah, I do like the Leslie Nielsen choice. He was on the long list, as was Jack Black, to be fair, I think. Because Jack Black, you are right, he's got such a wealth of different roles in his locker, and they've all been great, well, good to great, haven't they? So yeah, great choice. Fantastic. Right, so that's the Questioncast part of this done. We're going to be moving on and discussing The Flash in a moment. So Ed, I'd just like to say thank you so much for coming on. It's been a real pleasure having you on. You've had some excellent choices as well.
No, I've enjoyed it. Thanks guys for inviting me on. I've listened for many years, so it's cool to be on. Thank you.
Anytime. Obviously, Matt will be off on his paternity leave before long, so I'm sure we'll be calling you back up for a future appearance as well.
Yeah, anytime, guys. Thanks very much.
Right, okay. Thanks for joining us after the break. So we're going to be discussing the good, the bad, and the crazy about Nicolas Cage's performance and the film in general of The Flash from 2023. There's not going to be a lot to talk about in regards to the performance because it's quite literally 5 seconds. So, Stu, just tell us about the good, the bad, and the crazy that you thought in the film in general.
I mean, it's such a baffling piece of art. I still can't believe it's got made. I mean, the good thing for me was seeing Michael Keaton again, because that was the Batman that I grew up with. He's not playing the Batman that I grew up with, though, is he? So that's not automatically a bad part. But the idea of having him back was a nice one, and I wish that we hadn't been bashed over the head and that had been a surprise somehow, but obviously it was never possible to do that. Look, I think it's enjoyable shit, basically. I enjoyed myself. I've watched it twice now. the first time I enjoyed myself more because I couldn't believe what I was watching. Second time you're watching it, you're thinking, yeah, this is actually not that much fun. But still, it was better than, in a kind of sick way, it was better than a lot of things that I'd seen the last couple of years from superhero-wise. Bad. Everything else. CG's bad. Plot's bad. Acting's bad. It leaves certain questions unanswered that we're never going to get answers to now, you'd think, which is annoying. And the crazy is the decision that they took with the guest stars and why we're doing this on the here, because there had to have been a better way than this, surely. It's just it's insane what they did, and the fact that he was back in the studio for this, and it wasn't just a CG model. What is the point? What's the point? Just baffling. Doesn't make sense.
It really didn't, did it? Matt, obviously this was your most disappointing film of last year in the couple of weeks podcast ago. So have you got anything good to say about this movie?
As a switch your brain off exercise, I mean, it was a lot of fun in parts, in isolated incidents and scenes. There was a lot of fun to it. It was a shit hot mess, wasn't it? Like, I couldn't come away from it and say to myself, this was an awful film because of X, Y, Z. It was just a mess, a complete mess. And much like Jurassic World, I would mention in pods gone by, it was like the main event. It's that meal that you've cooked all day in the slow cooker, and then when it comes to it and you eat it, you're like, what the hell has been put together here? This wasn't what I expected. That's exactly what The Flash was. And that's the bad. It's the execution of it. It was just everything that had been brought up. This was meant to be the thing that kick-started that universe. This was meant to be like the Infinity War of this universe, and everything gets going from here, and this is everything. Like, it's going to be amazing, and this is a new. And it really wasn't, was it? It was just completely went against everything that they did well to try and build this up. Has had an adverse effect now, in terms of like wanting to then have an appetite to see any films in the franchise going forward, or not now in my case. The crazy for me though is, like, for something that should have been such a big deal, they gave way too much away in the trailers. And I know, Stu, you're going to say, well, don't watch trailers, but like, they're there for a reason, for intrigue, not to give away the entire story, which practically is what it was. And that should have been the warning signs, more fool us for them thinking it should have been anything more than what it was, when they're willing to give away all of the playing pieces well ahead of time. Like, we should have known better.
I mean, I've now got to the stage where, where like the Football Ramble started doing it for a bit, where they for a couple of weeks, and I think that Friday I didn't notice it, so I think they've stopped. Where they started doing a thing coming up on the Football Ramble, even that was starting to piss me off, because it's a spoiler for the show that I'm listening to. You don't need to do this, and that's why I started certain more American than here. There was a period of time where some shows had a thing where they'd show like coming up next after the break, and they'd show you shitloads of stuff. And you think, well, I know why you're doing this. You're doing this to keep people engaged because you go into adverts and you don't want them to wander off. But at the same time, you're just giving away stuff that you're going to be watching again in a minute. But it's got that bad.
You mentioned that though, Stu, because if you watch like some daytime BBC TV shows like Homes Under the Hammer and that kind of crap, they still do that on shows without fucking adverts. Like, yeah, you'll still have Dion Dublin saying later in this show, and I'm like, you're not breaking this show up. Why are you doing that, you fucking idiot? So off-putting.
It must be because it's sold worldwide. It must be.
I mean, who in fucking San Diego is watching Dion Dublin rocking up in Hanley to decide about buying a fucking house on a slope? Like, yeah. Sorry, I've disturbed your flow there, Stu.
But you say this though, but Midsummer Murders was like the number one show on Netflix or wherever in America at one point.
Was it
I went, and we went to one away game once, and we was in this pub, and it was a recreation of the Midsummer Murders pub. It wasn't in the place because the place doesn't exist, but it was a proper Midsummer Murders bar, and they had merch and stuff all over the walls. It was really odd, and there was a lot of Americans in there. It must have been in Braintree or somewhere like that, but it was just peculiar.
Very odd. Very odd. Right, so my good. There was a little bit of heart to this film, I've got to be honest. Like, I think the story with his mum, that was quite a sweet story, and I get where it built from. And I love the original, the source material, the Flashpoint book. It's just tremendous. And they did a decent, not good, decent enough job of recreating the whole point of why Flashpoint became a thing. So I'll give it that. The bad was, like you said, Stu, it is pretty much everything else. It was ugly as sin, this film was. Like, if you pause on any screen in this movie, it just looks hideous. The CG was so poor that at no point did anything resemble what it was supposed to resemble, let alone when we were in the flash time nonsense. That's the ugliest shit I've ever seen in any film, let alone any superhero film. It was just horrific. It was such a bad film in general. I enjoyed it in the cinema, but like you said, the rewatch, it is almost unwatchable, sat at home watching it, knowing where it's going. At least when I watched it first time in the cinema, I was kind of like, this is awful. What's going to happen next? And I didn't hate it because I was kind of enjoying the ride that I was on with it. But at home, where it's going, it's like, oh, this is just awful. There's zero rewatchability in this movie. It's horrendous. And the crazy, pretty much everyone involved in the final scene, where he's going through all the different iterations of his Superman and what have you. Pretty much all of those people have come out and said about what an awful experience it was. They've been like Nicolas Cage has come out and said how much he hated his time there. And he was there for a fucking day, for crying out loud. Like, he wasn't there dumb enough to be that pissed off. And of course, obviously, everything that happened in regards to Christopher Reeve's family not signing off on it. You've got Helen Slater, who didn't have a great time as Supergirl, but she was, fudged in there, same as George Reeves as well. Like, it was just kind of morally bankrupt as well in the end. And I'm just very glad that it's gone now and we can leave it and move on. And that's the DCEU effectively done. I know we've had a couple of little films after, but I think Blue Beetle's actually going to go forward. And I'm fine with that because that was fun enough. Didn't hate that film at all. And I actually will rewatch that at some point. Aquaman was dog shit. Don't waste your time. Flashpoint, realistically, is the end of the old DCEU. And I'm glad of it, to be honest, because, yeah, it's been mostly stinker after stinker, hasn't it? Let's be honest.
Yeah.
Right. So, next question. Did you enjoy the film? I think we know the answer to this one, but Matt?
Enjoy in the sense that, like, sometimes just slow down if there's been an accident on the motorway and you can't help but watch it, then yes, but otherwise, no.
Stu?
I mean, I've enjoyed having a bruised rib, which I'm now saying I have got today more than watching this film again. But the first time when I did enjoy myself, just for all the wrong reasons. So it's kind of in the middle of them, I suppose.
Yeah, I think if you're doing a bad movie night, this is a bad movie that you will have fun with. If you want to watch a good film, this is not the film for you, I don't think. So, yeah, I agree with pretty much what both of you have said. The next question is kind of redundant, but Stu, was Nicolas Cage good or was he bad? It is, 5 seconds? That wasn't even him.
I mean, we got to see what him fight a beast that we were promised in what I'm going to recommend to watch instead. So, maybe. I mean, it's impossible. We can't even use this category for this one. I mean, for argument's sake, it just has to be wiped from history because it doesn't count. Even for us, it doesn't count.
No. But have you got anything to say about Nick Cage's cameo?
I mean, he brought a smile So that's something, isn't it? At the end of the day, like
Yeah.
it was a fun nod and nothing more, nothing less.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's nothing you can say. It looks awful and it barely looked like it was Nicolas Cage, to be perfectly honest. But I did laugh, and especially because he's fighting the giant space alien spider. Like, if you know the story on what I'm assuming Stu's going to be recommending, yeah, the joke's there. Fine. Enough. Done. So, final question. If you enjoyed The Flash, you may also like... Matt?
I've gone down because if you do enjoy this, you enjoy a hot mess of a film that is still fun regardless. So I'm going for the greatest crossover in history that ever existed, and that's Alien versus Predator. Again, a hot mess of a film that, like, on paper should have been great. The execution wasn't quite there, but I did have a lot of fun with it, and I still think, you know, that's all you need sometimes. And I did really enjoy Alien versus Predator because of how kind of stupid it was.
Talking about Predator, we never mentioned it, did we? The cop.
Oh, Carl Weathers, yeah, I know.
Really sad that was. Really got me.
What's that?
And you see his Stallone's little video as well.
Oh no, I haven't brought myself to watch it yet because I just know it's going to be heartbreaking.
He's got like a painting of the two of them behind him in this bar. I presume it's in his house or something. It's really sweet, actually. He's just talking about how great he was and how he was part of his life and all this kind of stuff. Yeah, really nice. I mean, like we said, in the group chat and the people that no one's had a bad word about him. You don't hear bad things about him ever. Just a really nice guy who did his job and he did it really well. So it's really sad that he's gone. But yeah. But anyway, a bit of a downer there. But yeah, if you want to watch something about why Cage is in this film, watch The Death of Superman Lives, because it's actually really interesting in just how films are made and how films are not made. Well, more importantly in this one, and it's obviously part of it is clipped out for the intro of the show. So, yeah, it's more interesting than this film is enjoyable. So if you want a bit of a
that is very true,
a side hustle and a bit of change of temperature, then go and watch that instead.
It is available on YouTube as well, to be fair. So that's well worth a watch. It is a great documentary. The film I'm going to recommend, because obviously I know it's a superhero film and there's a fucking wealth of superhero films that everyone has seen. So I'm going to go for one that probably very few people have seen. It's called Super Bob. It was available on Amazon Prime to stream. It's a really sweet little British film that was made on a shoestring with Brett Goldstein starring as Bob. And he's the only human being he's basically Superman in a world where there are no other superheroes. And the government try to coerce him into doing what the government want to. But he just wants to be left alone and live his life. It's also got Natalia Tena in it, who's Tonks in the Harry Potter films. Catherine Tate's in it as well. So there's a few other recognisable faces in there. It's just a really sweet little comedic superhero film that I think more people should watch because it's wonderful. So that's my recommendation on this one. So that's us done this week. Next week, Matt, how do you fancy doing a music cast? The first
I bloody love it. Yeah, because we mentioned on the podcast about the Beatles catalogue. There's an interesting story there about I say Marilyn Manson, fucking Michael Jackson. But yeah, we'll come to that on Musicast.
Lovely. So that'll be next week, and then we'll be back with a question cast after that one. I will let you know what film we'll be watching and discussing next week. That one. So you can get us on YouTube. We have recorded tonight, so fingers crossed this will actually be uploaded. I don't know when, but I'll try. Don't worry about it. Twitter, TikTok, Insta, MySpace, wherever the cool kids are hanging these days, you will find at Cage Fighting Pod, where you can email us cagefightingpod@gmail.com. Make sure you subscribe on whatever podcatcher that you listen to us on. And if you could leave a little 5-star review, we would love you forever. So for this week, Matthew, would you like to say goodbye?
Take it easy, everybody. Have a great week ahead, whatever you get up to. Stay safe. Check in on those pals of yours.
Stuart, would you like to say goodbye?
Yeah, minute. As we were recording this, Xbox Era says that Microsoft is planning to release Starfield on PS5. So, no more exclusives for Xbox. So that's one for a few weeks' time. By that point, we'll know more. Goodbye, everyone.
And it's goodbye from me. And remember, be excellent to each other.